Hi, I'm Michael Allison, Commercial Director at Roma Finance, and welcome to another episode of RomaTalks, where we meet people from across the property ecosystem and also colleagues from Roma Finance as well. And this week, I'm delighted to be joined by Keith Richardson, our longtime CFO and non-executive director. Hello, Keith.
Hi, Michael.
You all right?
Very well. Yeah, good, thanks.
Good. So, Keith, obviously, we work together closely and I know you very well. But for those who don't know you, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, my career started almost 45 years ago now, when I started as a chartered accountant over in Booth Street, just down the road from here. That took me through various stages of audit, tax, corporate finance, and round about 25 years ago, 30 years ago, I joined a private company, a public company down in Wigan, and worked for them for about 17 years. That was in mining equipment, nothing to do with property finance at all.
No.
That took me quite a way around the world. I went to China, Russia, India, and was responsible for subsidiaries in all those countries. And I did that for, as I say, around about sort of 15 to 17 years before I moved on to another business just up the road in Hyde, which was completely different again, which was textiles and retail for a company called Christie. Worked with them for 5 years before eventually I met one of our investors in Roma, Phil Hadari, which was 12 years ago, and I've been here ever since. So that was essentially me. I'm a chartered accountant and worked in finance basically all my career.
What's interesting, you obviously, apart from where you were located, which is Hyde, Cheetham Hill and Wigan, you've seen the world in different industries by the job that you left school and university to do. Yeah,
that's right. It was, and going back to 25, 30 years ago, it was quite an unusual thing to do, to travel. So I was seen as somewhat of a bit of a celebrity in Wigan at the time, because there was very, very few people who were travelling at that time. And I got a lot of miles in, which is not necessarily great for the climate these days, I guess, but it was the way of the world. The only way you could get to see people in places like Inner Mongolia or Siberia, which are some of the places where I went to, none of the nicer parts of the world, it was the only way you would ever get there. So what it did was it sort of gave me a great insight mostly into people, that people are the same no matter where you come from. Whether it's China, Russia, India, Germany, everybody has the same issues with family and worries about money and all those kinds of things. And you, as a consequence, become quite tolerant and quite patient with people.
So obviously that's really good insight into your past and how you've manoeuvred through, and you seem to stay at places for them longer periods. So where did Roma fit into all this?
Well, Roma happened, it was quite strange, and I can remember the day that I first met Scott and Phil Hadari, the major shareholder. At that point in time, I was Phil Hadari's finance director for what is now Pilot Group. I was called into Phil's office. Scott was there. I'd seen him about in the office a little bit at that time, and I'd heard of this company called Roma, because the company I was working for lent money to Roma at that point in time, relatively modest amount. And Phil's comment was, we're looking to take Roma to the next level, and we'd like you to get on board and just look at it as a hobby. Well, in 12 years, it's been a lot different to stamp collecting. Say that. And so that was how it started. And it was literally, the company at that point had, I think, 3 loans on its balance sheet. We've still got the first spreadsheet that I did with a balance sheet on it. And it was at a time when, Scott virtually knew the colour of the bathroom suites and the kitchen furniture in all the loans that we were lending to. And it just started from there. So, Pilot Group, through Pilot Group subsidiaries, we were lending money into Roma to get it started. Very much a proof of concept. And I think from that point on, that was where the DNA of the Roma business came. We were investing Phil's money, we were custodian of Phil's money, and we took the view that, we've got to protect it. And we've taken that right through to where we are today, that we look at all our stakeholders and we're custodians of their money, whether it's the few million that were being invested on day one or the hundreds of millions that are being invested today.
Yeah, and we see ourselves as custodian of their cash and the customers as the custodian of ours. Correct. So it's finding that whole, it's business partnership, isn't it? That's the partnership model. that we embrace.
Yeah.
So what would you say have been the big changes during that time?
Well, the big change when I started, there was just basically one employee, in addition to Scott, working out of a very small broom cupboard.
I've heard about this broom.
Yeah, it was a nice broom cupboard. It had some sort of nice pictures of Wayne Rooney and the Godfather on the walls, which was quite interesting at the time. But the actual sort of change has really been a move through the ranks where, we got new employees in, people like Lorraine came in, Tina came in, and gradually you got to the point where you look around the room, and I walk in today and look into that huge room that we've got with all the people busying away, all doing deals all day long. It's just a completely different animal. But the important thing is the DNA remains the same. It's customer focus first, as it always was on day one. A lot of our stakeholders always used to say to us, well, as you get bigger, you'll not be able to continue working in the same way. I think we actually have continued to work in the same way. I think it's very much still the customer focus. We understand the customer, and we're only interested in doing what's right for the customer first.
No, definitely. It goes all the way to recruitment. The people or the colleagues that we bring into the business have to share that mindset as well, and we use that as part of the recruitment piece, and also the colleague onboarding, because culture it's everything really. When it comes to a business, it only takes one or two people to be off script, and the damage that can cause. So I think the culture that you set out all those years ago on your hobbies, it embodies on what we're looking to try and to achieve now. So what would you say is the best success story of Roma during that time?
I think the success story has been doing what we do, what we did right at the very beginning, on a much bigger scale now, and being able to embrace the industry in a way that probably not many other organisations within our industry can actually sort of do business. We go in with the mindset that we want to see the customer succeed first and foremost, and as a result of that, we are succeeding as well. So it's win-win.
Yeah, definitely. And you've been pivotal or instrumental and pivotal, I guess, the two key words in you transitioning into that funding line structure that we're now. Obviously, we operate we have 10 funding lines, but 3 core ones: one for bridging, one for development finance, and one for buy-to-lets and term finance. How did you find getting the first funding line? Was that
Well, it was interesting. We, as the saying goes, you go around and kiss a lot of frogs, but I think we were seen as the frog, actually. Day one, we probably, even though we were working with Pilot Group, and I was heavily involved with NatWest through Pilot Group, they still weren't interested. They saw that we needed a track record before we can actually get a loan. And it's that chicken and egg. How do you actually sort of get the track record if you can't get the actual funding to actually put you there in the first place? And the first loan was really quite interesting. We eventually got an audience with the guys at NatWest, and we're very, very grateful for that. And Scott built a great rapport with one of the relationship guys at NatWest. Always remember the story of Scott in the car park at Tesco, going through all our documentation with the guy after they had a lunch at a very impressive restaurant, no doubt, wherever it turned out to be. And the guy actually said, "Yeah, come along, let's see what we can do." And that deal with NatWest took almost 12 months to get over the line. And of course, what happened on the day that we got it over the line, the Brexit vote was announced. and at that point in time, we thought, well, NatWest are going to pull the plug. Anyway, they didn't. They actually sort of stuck with us, and the rest, to a certain extent, is history. That was a 10 million facility, and now we're at 100 million with NatWest, and plus another 300 million with other various funding sources.
Good. And what's your proudest achievement for you as an individual working with Roma?
I think for me, it's seeing where we are today. It really is great. From my point of view, I will always look back that there's going to be a legacy from a career that hopefully Roma will be bigger and better even after I've gone. And being able to say that I was party to actually sort of getting that there is makes me very, very proud.
Well, listen, I think testament, we're proud that you've been part of the journey as well. So that's the work journey. What about you outside of work? When you weren't busy travelling out to Mongolia, in Mongolia, etc.
Well, I've got a family, very family orientated. I've got two kids. My son, who's married with two other children. So I've got two grandchildren. They live up in Newcastle. I've got a daughter who's down in married and down in London with another granddaughter. So we spend an awful lot of time to-ing and fro-ing from the centre of the country, north and south. I also love sport. I'm a big sort of rugby league fan.
Yeah.
I'm a big cricket fan. And I also like travelling. So we tend to spend, since I've gone into this sort of semi-type of retirement, we do spend quite a lot of time still travelling around the world. So we've got sort of a number of countries on our bucket list that we'd still like to go to. I'd like to go to Hawaii. I'd like to go to, we've been to Alaska, but that was actually cut short by COVID mid-route, and we'd like to go again back to the Far East. But, so that's it. Yeah, just very, 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 very busy. There's no rest for the wicked, as they say.
So when you're not busy being granddad up and down the country,
Yeah.
you're also flying and then still working with us here at Roma.
I am, yes. Yeah.
And what piece of advice would you give to any of your grandkids if they wanted to get into a career in accountancy, finance?
Well, my daughter is an accountant.
Right, okay.
My son isn't. Maybe steer clear because there's a lot of hard work involved. But no, I think really finance is a great way to get under the skin of any kind of business. And it's no surprise that a lot of chief execs in a lot of the FTSE businesses are ex-accountants. I've gone through that route because you get to see every element of the business, which you perhaps don't do in some of the other disciplines, which are equally important, but you just don't get a feel for it. Whereas you, from an accountancy point of view, you also know, you know what makes the business tick and how to get it from A to B.
Yeah. You get the so what, I guess, don't you? So everyone else has their own parts of the business, but you're able to see it all together, which is the numbers.
Correct.
It's the numbers that drive everything, really.
It is, yeah.
And that's what's enabled you to go from mining into towels, into a pilot group, and then also into building properties.
Well, business principles are the same no matter what. You've basically got to have more money in the bank at the end of the year than you had at the start. And if you don't, it doesn't matter whether you're in mining equipment, textiles, retail, whatever it might turn out to be, you're going to fail. Yeah.
And it's your job to point that out, or the job of the finance team to point that out along the the piece, and keeping the commercial department in check about how much they spend on marketing and sales, the collections department in check on how much we're getting back in redemptions. It's balancing all those numbers, isn't it?
It absolutely is, yeah.
Keith, thanks for joining us today. Really enjoyed speaking to you, and I hope you did too. Join us next time when we'll be speaking to another member of the Roma team or somebody else from that property ecosystem. Thank you very much.